Most of the Jews fled after the first war in the region in the 1990s. But after the recent Georgian attack on the city, only one 71-year-old woman remains there. RT's Leah Ferguson met her.
A lost world. This is what remains of Sinval's most historic quarter. It was once home to a thriving Jewish community. Now, 71-year-old Rosa is the last Jew left. But her home largely lies in ruins. She was lucky to survive the Georgian bombardment.
When we came under attack, I stayed in my bedroom with my arms against the wall, praying that the wall would somehow protect me. I can't believe it stayed standing when the rest of my house crumbled.
The family house built by her father, destroyed. The tree her mother planted to mark Rosa's birth, now charcoaled and dead. Rosa says this may have been a humble place, yet its sentimental value was priceless. Well, evidence of a life crushed by this war. Rosa's possessions have been completely destroyed. She's waiting for some kind of compensation now, but she says nothing can make up for what she's lost. Only 2 rooms are left standing. Rosa continues to live here, but in squalor. She's been promised $2,000 by the South Ossetian government, but she hasn't seen it yet. The only item she was given by a visiting official last week is this Jewish Bible. Rosa had no children. She never married. She had lived together with her best friend. He too survived the war, but died 4 days ago of heart failure. Now she's alone.
My Jewish friends have all gone, but I have to stay. I just can't bear to leave the city where I was born and where my parents are buried.
The Jewish community in Sinval dates back centuries, being one of the first ethnic groups to settle here. But the synagogue has largely stood empty since the 1990s, when most Jews left after the first South Ossetian War. Now this war has caused the rest to flee. All except just one lonely figure, struggling to cling on to her roots. Leah Ferguson, RT, Sinval in South Ossetia.
Well, NATO ambassadors visited Georgia on Monday to set up a commission designed to kickstart the country's bid to join the alliance. Although no concrete dates were mentioned, NATO is expected to reconsider the country's application in December. The alliance's Secretary-General Yevgeny Sheffer showed his support for Georgia in light of the recent conflict and condemned Russia's actions in the Caucasus. But he added that NATO will not close its doors on dialogue with Russia. Moscow criticised the bloc's support for Saakashvili and its plans to help it rebuild its military capability, saying it will only encourage further Georgian aggression. Russia says it did not pursue any geostrategic goals when responding to Georgian aggression in South Ossetia. The Foreign Ministry's statement followed harsh comments from the US Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, who lashed out at Moscow, saying that Russia's policies could put it on a path to isolation and international irrelevance. But not all American politicians share her point of view, as Anna Moya found out.
Some of the harshest words used against Russia so far. For more than half an hour, Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice lashed out at Russia, criticizing its policies both at home and abroad.
The legitimate goal of rebuilding the Russian state has taken a dark turn, with the rollback of personal freedoms and the paranoid, aggressive impulse.
Rice delivered the speech before the nonpartisan public policy institution, the German Marshall Fund. Nearly 300 people attended to hear what Rice had to say. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, former presidential candidate Ron Paul disagreed. He accused the US government of trying to stir another Cold War, driven by vested interests.
This whole issue about Georgia and all has only to do with oil and pipelines, and that powerful financial special interests are involved.
The anti-Russia rhetoric has caused little concern in the Kremlin. President Medvedev has signed treaties with South Ossetia and Abkhazia, vowing to protect them in case of an attack. Rice denounced their independence. Ron Paul embraced it.
Two little states say they want to be independent or aligned with Russia. What's wrong with self-determination? I love it.
Despite the criticism, the Bush administration has stopped short of turning words into action. There have been no sanctions against Russia. Seeking to downplay this, Rice claimed Russia has hurt itself.
Russia's civil nuclear cooperation with the United States is not going anywhere now. Russia's leaders are imposing pain on their nation's economy. Russia's bid to join the World Trade Organization is now in jeopardy.
But Ron Paul says Russia is also aware of America's weaknesses.
Our troops are really tied up. Even if we had had to do something militarily in Georgia, which would have been ridiculous, we didn't really have the troops to do that.
The United States also needs Russia to stop Iran's nuclear program. While only Nicaragua has joined Russia in recognizing the independence of South Ossetia and Abkhazia, Russia remains firm in its support for the regions. Washington has objected to Russia's actions over and over again, but it has not dared to truly challenge Moscow. The reason it cannot afford to lose Russia's support when it comes to Iran and the global war on terror. Anna Moya, RT, Washington.
Georgia's military airfields could become the base for US airstrikes on Iran, according to Russia's NATO envoy. Dmitry Rogozin says the region's defense system is being rearmed, possibly under the cover of American humanitarian aid.
What NATO is doing now in Georgia is restoring its ability to monitor its airspace. In other words, restoring the whole locator system and an anti-missile defense system, which were destroyed by Russian artillery. Now these systems are being restored as soon as possible. We have unconfirmed information that American ships, under cover of humanitarian aid, have delivered all the equipment necessary for the restoration of these systems. Why is it done? Of course, not to prevent some virtual Russian air attack. It's clear that the war in Georgia is over. And if all the security measures in South Ossetia and Abkhazia are being pursued, then there are no grounds for any recurrence of military action. It's done for logistic support of some air operations, either of the alliance as a whole or of the United States in particular in this region. The swift reconstruction of the airfields and all the systems prove that some air operation is being planned against another country, which is located not far from Georgia. What country could it be? Which country is in the spotlight now? Of course, it's Iran. There are no other countries.
Other news stories from the week now, and technical failure and engine fire are thought to be the most likely causes of last Sunday's Boeing 737 crash in Perm.